you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters and honors guests, I could be up here and give a loquacious performance tonight. It would be really easy for me. As a trained actress, I know how to do that. I can charm you, I can give you some excessive, elaborate stories, and by the end, I guarantee you would like me. But that's not the commitment that I wrote in my introduction. The commitment to you tonight is to introduce the core of who I am and what inspires me and the work that I do. So I'm going to start with the scary stuff. The stuff that we normally don't share, especially on a stage in front of a whole bunch of people. It's the fears and the insecurities. We're all human, and we all have them. So I'm just going to call them out right here and share them with you. One, I still have fears that I'm not good enough. I've given speeches all over. I've been paid to speak. And still, I'm shaking a little bit, thinking that I'm not good enough right here in my Icebreaker at Toastmasters. I also have fears that I'm really selfish and irresponsible with all the decisions I've ever made in my 27 years. And sometimes I feel like, even with my commitment to being authentic, that I come off as a fraud. Now that's not an awesome place to come from, and not everybody gets to see that. Most of the time, we as humans put a lot of space between our fears, our insecurities, and everybody else around us. And what we do in that space is we create these, I call them survival mechanisms, but maybe another word for them would be a facade, or a way to hide those fears and insecurities. So I'm going to introduce you to mine. They have names, and they're cute, and they're hilarious, and I love them. One is called Tragic Tinkerbell. She is super dramatic. She likes to stress out and get emotional about every single little thing in life. She loves when you feel pity on her, and she really wants to be magical, but she doesn't believe that she is. Then I've got Artificial Chameleon. This is the version of myself that will shape shift and turn into whoever you want me to be, at the cost of being really true to myself. Artificial Chameleon loves to be loved, but doesn't show up authentically. And last, and you better not call her the least, is Backseat Control Freak, and that is the perfectionist that lives inside of me. There is a right and a wrong way to do things, and she knows which is which. She'll try to sit in the back, maybe do a smaller role for the night, but if you do something wrong, bam, she will take over that driver's seat, and she will continue on the road perfectly, kicking you to the curb. Now again, these are a humorous way to explain the ways that I've always protected myself. They're not necessarily bad, but they're things that I've done to keep me from being seen as weak or as not good enough or all those things that I shared before. But they've also really served me in my life. For example, Artificial Chameleon is the thing that protected me from bullies in grade school. Tragic Tinkerbell had an epic acting career. And Backseat Control Freak can take the front seat and drive me home when I'm running my business and I just don't feel like it today. So I still use them, but they're not the highest version of myself. They're just what happens when I get stuck in fear and believing stories that aren't necessarily true. To get out of my own head and into who I really am at the core, I couldn't rely on myself because I've got all those voices in my head and they're pretty loquacious. So I had to rely on others. I had to ask for support and I had to trust people. So I asked my colleagues, my friends, my family, 2 questions. What do I bring into a room? What qualities show up when I do? And they started reflecting things to me. And it was a really interesting experience because at first I didn't believe them. They're the things I wished that I was. But the reality is that was being reflected because it's already who I am. If I were to boil all these reflections down, they can sum up in 5 words. Beacon, power, joy, heart, and courage. Beacon is that illuminating and inspiring part of me. It's the leadership that runs in my veins that I just can't help. Power was hard for me to swallow at first because I always equated power with force. But if you separate it from that definition and I listened to the reflections, it had to do with the vitality, the energy that I bring with me, the enthusiasm, the vulnerability and leadership at the same time, and the confidence and clarity that I show up with to make the impact that I want to have in the world. Joy. Joy is deeper than happiness. Joy is something that doesn't go away if you're having a bad day, but it's really inside of you if you choose to see it, and I always choose to find it. Heart is at the center of it all. I try to live from my heart because my head gets in the way. My heart is where I keep my superpowers. My superpowers of empathy, compassion, and love, which I believe are the lifeblood of humanity. And courage. Courage, by dictionary definition, is enabling a person to face difficulty and danger without fear. Now, my personal definition is a little bit different because I don't believe you can just get rid of fear like that. I believe that courage is when you show up in dangerous and difficult situations with fear. Fear can be there, but you choose to move forward anyway. That's true courage. Beacon, power, joy, heart, courage. That's who I am at the core. And I couldn't think of a better way to introduce myself to you. This is what drives my life. It's what drives my career as a life coach and a speaker. And it allows me to impact and inspire so many, even in a room like this. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for allowing me to share my authentic self and holding all of that space for me. It's been a pleasure.